Welcome to the Zachrilege cast, episode 28, solo edition. Today is August 24th, 2015. Who am I? What am I? What is the point of this endeavor? I'm going to reshuffle a bit tonight, seeing as I didn't get a guest, and talk down to earth in a language everyone here can easily understand. I'm going to play the narcissist and talk about me, since I host the show, and although I make it a point to ask my guests to ask me one question, I haven't been properly introduced. Let's try. And of course, bringing a little brown ale tonight, so we'll see how that goes. For you who are keeping track at home, Breckles Brown, this is from the company that does Anchor Steam, and it's quite tasty if you like that sort of beer. So here I am. My name is Zach Law. I live in Atlanta, Georgia with my wife, who will be known as Wifey, and two lovely black kittens named Scatman and Soy Cuba. We are skilled at things besides naming cats. I am a football fanatic, and I host another show called Going for Two on Wednesday nights that covers that possibly dying slowly American sport. By day, I'm an email marketer, and by night, and I suppose by day as well, I am an atheist. But why this show, and what is this show all about, you might ask? I know it may not come off in my Twitter comments and show notes, but I have a deep love for humanity. I believe that religion does not share my love for humanity because, for the most part, it is a parasite. I also believe that there are hundreds and thousands of people doing good work without the need of divine inspiration. And as long as those people want to listen / watch me do it, I'm going to interview every one of them. And I've only gotten started. This show started as an homage to podcasters. My introduction to podcasting began when I found Adam Carolla's show. I recall a long time ago hearing him on Loveline, and there's something about that nasally drone that brought me back. And on one of his episodes, he ranted on about how every religion is equally retarded. He's kind of blunt that way. He was admitting being an atheist, which you don't hear too often in what was terrestrial radio, as he became one of the podcast pioneers, and I think is still one of the leaders there. I will admit that Mr. Carolla and I parted ways when he started identifying a little bit too much with right-wingers for my tastes. And I guess that's one of the things that I might bring up tonight, is that you may follow someone, you may like them, you may watch their shows or listen to their podcasts, maybe read their blogs, but there will be that moment where you disagree, and then you get to make a choice. Do I stay or do I go? In this case, I left. Like I try to do on my normal weekly shows, I do a little break to give love to podcasts. So what I'm going to do is take a little break from my own self-talk and talk about podcasts. The original idea behind this show was just me talking about podcasts. And in this forum, pretty much exclusively on the atheist and skeptic side. I've already thrown up my hands, and I know I'm never going to listen to everything. At first, you get a little annoyed that there's so much great content and so many great shows that you may never hear about. Or you do hear about, you just don't have the time. Or the show goes away before you've even had a chance to listen to one episode. At the same time, I'm glad that people like Cash have spawned a generation of podcasters, because we need more voices, obviously. So here's the thing about podcasts. There was a brief time in which if you had an interest in a subject, and it was a fringe subject, you were lucky to find one or two podcasts that cover your obsession. Now you can go to iTunes, find a podcast of particular interest, let's say atheism, and you will have more than your share of shows. And because you have so many options, you can listen to 5 minutes and just say, fuck that noise, this isn't me. Or you like the subject matter, but not the host's voice, or maybe the audio quality is bad. Oh boy, I hope this new headset doesn't turn people away for quality. But what you do over time is you find the shows that fit your personality. For me, I like the shows when the hosts ramble a bit and you're still interested when they're talking about anything. I need an engaging host with which I might enjoy a beer or other similar beverage, such as I could take more beer breaks when I ask questions. It's a bit of a problem. So we'll start with no religion required. Now, I know they finance this shit as Bobby C was my first, and I assumed only supporter on Patreon. Patreon.com/Zachrilege, folks. It's spelled right there. Right there? Right there. So I have to give him love. Although, really, I don't. I can say thank you to Bobby and move on, but I legitimately like their show, and I'm happy that Bobby has more free time to admire his hat collection now that he's freed from editing. I didn't make the easy old person joke. Sorry. In the past 2 weeks, you've seen No Religion Required show an old version of their show and a new version of their show. Because about, 5-6 weeks ago, they started doing their show live. So every Sunday night at 7 o'clock, you can hear them record their show live. Whereas before, Bobby had to record the show, he had to edit it, and post it. So this week, because they're out of town, they recorded a show, and it was kind of like old times. I've told them multiple times that it's hard for me to listen to a live show. I prefer the stops and starts of listening via podcast on my iTunes the following morning. Plus, this gives me a better opportunity to take the show out of context on Twitter, which is one of my favorite pastimes. And if I take your podcast out of context on Twitter, that's my version of I love you, because that's about as emotional as I gonna get. So what is one of my favorite secret things about podcasting? Well, I like it when shows that pretend to be PG go with the hard R. So last week, which was August 16th-ish, they tried to go that way with blogger and singer extraordinaire JT Everhard. He even did the thing a few times, where he purposely didn't say the vowel in that word. After it was obvious that cursing was happening and there's nothing he could do, everyone let loose, and that was great. And another little side thing, because I can do that, about being in a niche group like atheism is actually seeing people making a living doing that. Well, it's hard to say you're doing it, you're being an activist. JT Everhard's a full-time activist. He does a blog, he speaks at conferences, he entertains. He would also make a great guest on this show, hint, hint. So how do you describe No Religion Required? Well, I'd call it Southern fried atheism covered with a nonsense gravy. I'm not sure what kind of gravy. I'm still, catching on here in the South, only having lived here for 20 years. They go off, tweet that, Ashley, on tangents quite often, and it's a fun ride. They're able to weave in personal stories with the interviews, including the Atheist Bible Study with Ashley mispronouncing every name, and the God Hates Facts section with the Prophet Jeremiah and Shane Thrapp on non-profit if there ever was one. Oh yeah, fuck you, Jeremiah from Korn. That's a personal message. I like to do that. Oh my non-existent God, wasn't this show supposed to be just about me? Well, let's move on. So what's my personal religious background? Well, I don't have one. We never went to church, and we never talked about the subject. I remember when we moved to Nashville and I went to a new school, a teacher asked me if I was a specific type of Christian, and it would be a better story if I could remember exactly what kind, let's say Presbyterian. I said no, she dropped it, and that was the end of the story. I had a few incidents with religion growing up, and there was a time a girlfriend said she was sad because I wasn't going to heaven because I didn't go to her church. I actually went to church with a girl I was dating. I took communion, having no idea what I was doing, thought I faked it pretty well. The next day she broke up with me, probably because I wasn't in the tribe. You can tell, they have a handshake. It never was a thing for me, and I never gave it much thought. I've always been a naysayer, a contrarian, always a little more content when I'm against the mainstream, but I never really thought the word atheist and thought that that's who I am until I was well into my 30s. It was because of podcasters like Adam Carolla that I thought, why not actually look up the word atheist in iTunes and see what I found? Well, guess what I found? The Atheist Experience, and I'm sure many of you are nodding right now, and I met a man named Matt Dillahunty. I don't listen to the Atheist Experience anymore, and I feel a little guilty. I loved the show because Christians called in and got routinely eviscerated. You think because the Christian religion is so pervasive in this country that it would be more substantive. Religious arguments were swatted down like they were mosquitoes, and I loved that. What's another podcast I dig? Well, thanks for not asking, friends. I'm a fan of The Barroom Atheist. A lot of shows I listen to are religious, no shit, about keeping a very strict podcasting schedule. Bill and Susie aren't up for that shit. They post whenever the fuck they want. Last year when Susie had a tumor and recovered from surgery, Bill asked for guest bartenders, and I thought, I can curse and drink, and I have earbuds, so I signed on. I did the show. I waited. I kept waiting. I recorded the show the first weekend of November, and it published around Thanksgiving. Turns out Susie's trying to catch up to me in the surgery of the month department. She had her gallbladder out and is doing fine. Well, what's that show all about? Well, it's about drinking. There's talking about religion. There's another Bible study. And there are Bill's arguments that people can have with theists in a bar. He's trying to come at people at the bar level. Like, what kind of conversation are you going to have at a bar? You're not going to go very deep. But what can you do quickly to talk to someone who is a person of faith to counter them? So it's a very personable and fun show, and they post a new episode. They did actually post an episode last week. Plus, they're doing a live show with No Religion Required right now, which kind of means, why the fuck are you listening to me now? You're listening to me on iTunes. You're not listening to me live. That's why. So back to this guy. Imagine you wake up and find yourself in a hospital bed. You don't know why you're there, but everyone's really nice to you, but doesn't talk to you much, which is okay because you don't do much besides sleep and lie there. One morning, your mom suggests that you watch some news, try to do something normal. 10 minutes later, you're watching a plane fly into the World Trade Center and you're asking the other watchers whether it really happened because reality's gone out the window. This is an experience I had in 2001. I did wake up in a hospital not knowing what brought me there. Turns out I had a really bad staph infection that led to blood clots, attempting to shut down my lungs, and after a 3-week coma, check out the next tattoo there, came out slowly to a world gone mad. Not only did I have to fight for my life for the following 3 months, I watched my parents go running back into religion's arms. There was a chaplain there, a really nice guy, and ended up marrying me and wifey 2 years later. He helped to facilitate the journey for my parents. Other side of the tracks, Catholics, one Eastern, one Western, into the fold again. When I returned from the ReasonCon conference in April, I called my mom and told her I was an atheist. She accepted it, but we haven't talked about it since. That's kind of the family setup now. So just to remind everybody, this is the Zachrilege Cast, the one true show that needs your support. Last week, I reached a goal where I finally reached my $10 an episode goal because Teody, part of the Atlanta Atheist Clan, who was supporting me, put $4 up an episode, and he can personally tell me whether he's getting his money worth. He's in, so is Bobby C. of No Religion Required. He is a young and virile man. And Hugh Man, who I am looking forward to hearing the singing voice and hopefully grilling with another day. So you can find this show. You can go to Twitter, it's at Zachrilege, it's where you find me. Go to the Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook. And gosh darn it, give me a 5-star rating on iTunes as well. Subscribe to this show. Be a part of it. You can contact me at zachrilege.cast@gmail.com as well as another way to reach me. So before we call it a night, I thought it would be a fun exercise to actually do a Where Are They Now for the guests I've had on this show. I've talked about 4 of them, but what about the rest? What's happened to them? So episode 1 was Bobby C. We have talked about Bobby C. We have talked about the 15th guest, which is Ashley, Miss Ashley. And number 21, Prophet Jeremiah as well, still on the show. And Shane, who also does the Country Fried Free Thought show, he was number 24. So look at that, I got a 4-for-1 deal. Second guest, early January, I talked to Paul, who does Coronify Me, and also has a new show, Atheist Apocalypse, which I talked to him and his entire, well, not entire, but it's a pretty big crew. of the show last week for episode 27. Paul is just about to publish and finish a 2-part interview with Nice Mango's former Muslim from Pakistan who also lived in Saudi Arabia and now lives in Canada. A bunch of Canadians out here, you know? What's the deal? You think they're all just apologizing for everything, but actually they're pretty cool people. Bill and Susie had on episode 3 of Barroom Atheist. We've already talked about them. Another show needs some love, Atheist Nomads, 100 episodes plus strong. Wesley was episode 4, and Dustin, co-host, was episode number 7. Still going strong out there in the West. Deb from Beyond the Trailer Park was episode number 5, and she's doing that show along with helping out with Atheist Apocalypse, doing My Secular Savior. I think it's Holy Crap the Vlogcast, Saturday nights way past my bedtime, and I'm sure assisting with every other show that you could possibly hear. Jim Dobler, who I had as number 6, he is a supporter of the atheist community, lives in North Carolina, and he's appeared a few times. I think he's been on No Religion Required and Barroom Atheist. If he's been on No Religion Required, that means he's been on that show more than I have. Just saying, people. Dr. Jill Durmeyer, talking about religious trauma syndrome, psychologist. Haven't actually been in touch since the show, but did a great job on there, and you should check her out. Chris Heathen of Unbuckling the Bible Belt was number 9. Show's still kicking it, along with his cohort Joe Kindick, who I interviewed as number 23. So look at me, I'm getting a lot of twofers here. Last week, I was very proud to hear the voice of Kelly Wright on The Thinking Atheist, because The Thinking Atheist is one of those flagship shows. And if you happen to be on it, that means you're pretty big time. So the fact that Kelly Wright was on a show about trans people, I think it was trans women on that show. It's great to hear that show, even though occasionally you think people are talking down. People are still getting to know what is happening with someone who's trans. What is their personal experience, and the fact that she is getting opportunities to speak and be on shows. And of course, anytime Seth on that show said, "Who wants to talk?" Guess who was first every time? Callie, because that's what Callie does. I interviewed an open call from a secret Facebook group on number 11. A lot of those people are still hanging out. Hey there, Stephanie, and I think just about everybody else in that show I'm going to be mentioning before the evening is done. Number 12, I had the Hickory Humanists. They were the people who hosted the Reason Con, which I am hoping will happen again next year. And the Atheist Adventures show, which they host, is still going on as well. So you can catch all that audio from Reason Con, all the speakers as well, which was a great conference and a lot of fun. And if you just couldn't make it, well, go ahead and listen anyway. I had a couple of the guys from the show for Wrath, and that's the number 4. And it's probably the only atheist podcast I know about out of Wyoming, and I'm hoping that shortly I'll be on the show. One thing I like about that show is they also like to drink. So good. Number 14, the guy who I probably need to call back at some point, Phil Ferguson, who does the Phil Ferguson Show, and he is a sponsor of pretty much every atheist conference worth going to. It's a nice little niche he's got going there. Zandy Anderson, who changed her name after our show, number 16, still working the Exodus Girls and trying to get her man, Nick Morganmore, to the U.S. from Australia, and I'm hoping probably be kind of fun to get the two of them on a show one of these days. Nancy Drew came on. If you know Nancy Drew, you should follow Nancy Drew PI on Twitter. She posts occasionally some good articles about atheism and actually thinking. Stephanie Jones of Atheists on Air was episode number 18, still assisting there and still making plenty of comments on Facebook. Just don't ask her to clean your pool. That's a bad idea. We had the Godless Mom on episode 19, still cranking out. It seems like a blog post every 5 minutes, doing her YouTube videos, godless_mom on Twitter. Andrew Garber, episode 20. He is of the Atheist Roundtable, a show that posts really late on Sunday night because that's when he gets free time on Blog Talk Radio. Don't blame him, and I hope he's playing some Wii U right now. Prophet Jeremiah, already got him. Tucker. Tucker living the atheist in the trailer park. So check out that show. And Tucker, I am reading that article about Christianity, and it's the book from the 19th century about Christianity and its parallels in other religions. It's a bit of a dense book, but I'm enjoying it because pretty much every chapter is like, hey, you see this part of Christianity? Here's where it was stolen from other religious traditions. Joe, I mentioned number 23, Shane Thrapp, Country Fried, Free Thought. Plus he's doing a lot of really good work in North Carolina as well. I think it's, can't remember the Free Thought group he's involved with. If you want to go to a good conference that's in Pennsylvania, you can go join Brian Fields and company at PastaCon, which is happening September 11th through 13th. That's the opening NFL weekend, so Corin will definitely be holed up in a sports bar on Sunday, but for the rest of the weekend, I'd say half the people I've interviewed are going to be there in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, so get yourself there. I once again couldn't find any guests. I had Christopher Maley and Corin on there, and I'd like to say, you know, when you interview somebody fairly recently, you're thinking, well, there's not much new to say about them. Well, they just got married last week, so they've done something since the show. And apparently they're still doing okay, although they are in different states, so I'm sure that has nothing to do with the level of wedded bliss they have at the moment. And last week, episode 27, I got to meet part of the Atheist Apocalypse crew. It's a new podcast. The bastards didn't tell me they were only going to post an episode every 2 weeks. It's a 30-minute comedy fiction, he likes to say, podcast about sort of the end of the world coming from a different angle, not the depressed version that we see from The Leftovers and the man, can they just all die version of Walking Dead that we kind of get tired of. So that's kind of a little bit about me. Obviously, you can't cover all the bases in one show. I just wanted to kind of say hi, and I want to do a show every week because I do enjoy this show. It's a lot of fun. It's fun talking to people that I've already met on Twitter or Facebook, or people that, when I get on the show, this is the first time we've interacted. It can be challenging at times, but it's fun to come up with questions. It's fun to do research on people and say, there are some great people doing some great work, and there are just some people putting out some great entertainment online. It's really something I enjoy doing when I exercise is listening to podcasts. I don't listen to the radio anymore. I listen to podcasts. I might listen to music occasionally, but podcasts, that's the way it's going for me. I really enjoy listening as well. Don't forget, if you get your No Religion Required, you feel like you haven't heard enough of them, get them on Cognitive Dissonance, them talking with Tom and Cecil. It's a good show. It's a lot of fun. It's entertaining, and they get to make fun of Bobby being old forever. So I'm going to call it a week. I think this is enough, especially with me just talking, and I haven't had a chance to drink even half of my beer, which is just a sad situation. So as I mentioned before, Zachrilege Cast. Find me on Twitter at Zachrilege. Follow me. Let me know how I'm doing. Feel free to ask some questions that I will love to answer in future podcasts. I'm going to keep asking questions. I'm going to keep interviewing people. Push people my way if you think there are some people who are not getting enough attention. I enjoy talking to people who've done 100 interviews as much as someone who's done their first. And I hope when I interview people for the first time, they get it known to a point where this isn't going to be their first interview. And they're going to be doing it for a while, and they're going to be inspiring people to show that if you don't believe in God, you can be a good person and you can have fun with it. So I'm going to just say thank you very much, Rich. I would say stay skeptical, peace out, and love y'all.